Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this year's circulation conference. I'm so happy to see how many people registered and how many people are logged in. It's great to see all of your names in the chat. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of you in person tomorrow. I'm Liz Sunderman-Zinger. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the chief of the Central Library here at Pratt, which is also the State Library Resource Center. And I'm so happy that we're able to offer this virtual conference today for all of you. Well, I absolutely love having everyone visit us here in the building. I know it's not possible for everyone, and it can be especially difficult for frontline staff. So please know that whether you can be here for only a session or two, or you can stay online with us all day, we really appreciate your taking time away from the desk is a challenge, and we're honored that you feel that this conference is worth your time and navigating all of those just time commitment challenges. So thank you for being here. Also, thank you for all that you do every single day, being the face of our institutions to all of our customers. It's not an easy job. It is absolutely crucial, and hopefully it's also rewarding for you. I hope that over the course of this conference, you're going to enjoy engaging with your colleagues around the state, learning valuable strategies and information, and that you'll gain at least a few insights that you can bring back to your team at your branch or wherever you work. I'd like to briefly introduce our new circulation manager here at the Central Library and State Library Resource Center, Lois Mayo-Dickey. She's only been here a few months, but already her energy and customer service expertise have made a difference here. She'll be the chair of next year's conference, and she's helped with the planning of this one. So Lois, why don't you go ahead and say hi?
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm preparing and looking forward to the next conference. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks, Lois. I'd also like to thank the rest of this year's conference committee. In addition to Lois, we have Emily Tanner, Megan Heburn, Jessica Russell, Tanea Knox, John Jewett, and of course, the fabulous Paula Mitchell, with whom none of this would be possible. So I'm looking forward to learning from all our presenters today, Anita, Levi, John, Chelsea, and our friends at the United Way. And I hope that you are too. I'm going to turn it back to Paula now. I hope that you enjoy your conference.
Thank you, Liz. Isn't Liz the best? I don't know if you were at the conference last year, but you pulled up that video at our welcome with Lizzo playing the flute at the Library of Congress. It's been a pleasure working with Liz as the new chief of SLRC over this last year. Thank you so much for your guidance and support over this year. We're really excited about all the new things to come for the circulation conference. Okay, gang, let's get ready for the big show. Okay, I've got two amazing library professionals who are going to be coming in today to do the keynote address. So it was with deep pleasure that I'm going to be introducing shortly Levi Branson and Anita Crawford. But before we get started, I just want to do a little housekeeping. You may have heard me at the top of the hour, but I'm going to repeat myself again and over again throughout the day. So again, we are in a Zoom webinar, which is very different than Zoom meetings. So you do not have access to your camera function or your microphone function. But if you'd like to chat with your colleagues across the state or with anybody on the call, build some momentum and excitement about the presentation today, please feel free to use the webinar chat function, which is just like a regular Zoom chat. Go ahead and chat away. If you have a specific question for the keynote speakers today or event staff, please use the Q&A function, which is located, depending on what device you're using, at the bottom of the screen or the top of your screen. Just click on it, put any question you'd like, and we'll make sure to get to it before the end of today's session. Throughout the session, we are going to be enabling closed captions for those who may need it. If you'd like to turn that function off, you'll have an option available to you again at the bottom or at the top where your toolbar is to turn that on or off for yourself. We will be recording today's session and the recordings will be available in the coming weeks on slrc.info. Any handouts or slides that the presenters are going to provide for us, we'll be able to share and pass along to you as well. And I think I covered all of the bases here. Oh, and if you want to remain private when answering your question, in the Q&A function, you have an opportunity to submit your question anonymously. Just if you're feeling like I need to be a little bit discreet, we're welcome to honor that discretion. So I would like to welcome, I wish I could roar, I wish we could have like a round of applause, Levi Branson and Anita Crawford for our keynote speakers this year. Levi Branson is the, I prepared notes. Okay. Levi Branson is the Circulation Services Supervisor at the Burr Artz Library at Frederick County Public Libraries. And Anita Crawford is currently serving as the Technical Processing Supervisor at Baltimore County Public Libraries. They're going to be doing richer introductions of themselves, so I'm going to stop taking up all of their time and turn it over to them. Take it away, Anita.
Thanks so much, Paula. Just getting our slide up.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, good morning. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And we so appreciate your time and attention this morning. We know it's the morning for the first keynotes of the year, but thankfully of the day. Thankfully, Levi and I really love talking to each other. So hopefully you'll love watching us talk to each other and to you. So we know that many of you work within the circulation department of things in a library, but we have many that work behind the scenes in departments, our librarians. We have folks here in public, academic, and private libraries. And luckily, Levi and I knew all of these things going in. So we worked on a presentation to have information that will work for as many of you as possible. And the two of us have a lot of experience and ideas that we're excited to share with you today to engage you in the position that you have, or if you're looking for a career change, we will be offering some support for that as well. We want you to take what you need from the presentation, and we invite you to leave the rest. That always makes me feel a lot better when I'm listening to something that I'm not just supposed to be absorbing every single drop of words that are happening, but that I can take the things that resonate with me and then leave the rest here. And as Paula said, we'll have time for questions at the end, so please use the Q&A function. And we wanted to also make sure that we thanked everyone who filled out our survey for us. We really, really appreciate it. I think we had 70 or so of you respond. So that really helped us give some insight about what you'd be looking for from this presentation. And we made sure we included some things that touched on those things. So thank you so much. And so I'm going to send it over to Levi to tell you a little bit about himself.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be a part of this conference. Every year I look forward to coming to the Circulation Conference and being an attendee. So it's an amazing honor to be a presenter today and to be with all of you in this virtual space. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to Paula and all our friends at the Pratt Library. It's always so wonderful to work with you, and what an amazing network of colleagues to have in this profession and in this state. And thank you to all of you for being with us today, especially those of you on our teams who have participated in an earlier workshop of this material during strange times, during the pandemic. It really gave us a great opportunity to workshop some material that we hope is helpful for everybody today. And it's an honor and privilege to have this time with you. And as Anita said, I hope that there is at least one thing that sticks with you and impacts the vision and view of yourself that you have and your future goals that you set for yourself. There are some of you who are with us today who I've had the pleasure to interact with or work with or just simply be in the presence of. And the experiences that I'm sharing today include you in some way. I'm not from Maryland, but I'm so proud to be a library professional in this state. So thank you for having us, and thank you for giving us the space and time today to talk at you for a little while. So as I've been introduced, my name is Levi. I work for Frederick County Public Libraries. I'm the Circulation Services Supervisor at the Burr Artz Public Library in downtown Frederick, Maryland, where I supervise a team of 15 who provide library services at a high circulation library branch. We operate 4 service points 7 days a week. And frankly, we are a powerhouse of customer service operation, providing transformational transactions that prioritize relationships with others through library services. So here on this first slide, pictured here is me of many, many years ago, performing in some plays and musicals. Some of them I've forgotten about, so it's funny to see these old pictures. My love affair with the theater started with childhood library visits, where I'd check out books about musical theater, And I'd check out all sorts of cast albums that I'd listened to on constant rotation. My family and parents, my brothers and my parents who are not in the theater, became very well acquainted with some lyrics that they would hear over and over again. If you're familiar with the company or a musical called Company by Stephen Sondheim, my mom likes to say she's been Bobby babied and Bobby boobied enough of her lifetime. So anyway, my connection and passion for theater is deeply connected. I started working in the theater in high school and have performed many roles, performer mostly, but also director, a stage manager, designer. I chose to pursue performing arts for my undergraduate degree and attended theater conservatory at the Chicago College of Performing Arts. My experience as an undergrad, though, exploring possibilities, led me to see that I had potential and interest in other careers, ones that maybe paid a little bit better. And that would be libraries, believe it or not. And I reconnected with a passion for information. I began pursuing my MLIS while working full-time as a library administrator, and I completed it in 2014. Without having any library experience other than academic, I made it a goal for myself soon after my graduation to apply for a library job every day until I got one. And I chose to take some risk with those choices. Eventually, I took a risk and accepted a part-time reference librarian job, one that didn't require my degree, but was the work I was trained to do and excited to do. And it was an entry-level role in a good organization that I could rise within. Within a year of being a part-time public librarian, I was promoted to full-time and co-supervising a shelving team of 10 at a high-volume location in Virginia. In 2017, I accepted a full-time librarian position with FCPL at my current library location, where I contributed to changes in our customer service approach and addressing needs, shepherding a shift in approach from rules to relationships. In that same year, I was promoted to my current position, where I have the opportunity to have a front-facing role that provides library customer service and the privilege to work alongside a team that connects to its customers and shares in the values of our organization. As a supervisor, I appreciate having the opportunity to support others to perform their roles and meet their individual and collective goals, lead others through challenges and change, and hope to enrich the experiences of others. And my favorite musical, which changes from time to time, but is currently and has been for a long time, the musical Follies. It's a great reflection of 20th century American musical theater, along with themes of individual dreams, illusions, and resignations. It's a show that can be joyous and bitter, quiet and brass, all at the same time. And Anita, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and experience?
I just love listening to you talk, Levi, all the time. I'm so happy. Okay. And I get to do this for the next hour or so. So I'm very excited. Okay. So hi, my name is Anita Crawford. I work for the Baltimore County Public Library in the Cataloging and Processing Department, which was previously called the Technical Services Department. I am a supervisor there for a department that currently sends out about 30,000 items per month that my staff of about 19 people have labeled everything. They put all the spine labels on, all the date labels, all of the RFID tags, and send them out to the doors to the branches and customers. Pictured here, I am about 18 years old in my second or third year as a shelver, doing what could only be described as a performance. I would carry as many DVDs as I possibly could to the shelves in my arms like this, and then I would shelve them that way. Now, thankfully, these are shelved only by the first letter of the title, so it's a very quick shelving process. I don't look like that much of a whiz, I promise, but it was something I really liked doing. So I like this picture. I texted my mom the other day asking her for pictures of me on stage from when I was in high school, and she said, I don't think there's anything in there. You have the VHS of the performance you were in. I don't know, I don't remember what it was called, so there's no luck there, but at least we have this performance photo. So I started in libraries when I was 16 years old in 2004, and I have been in libraries now for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years next April. After I graduated high school, I went to community college. I dropped out. and I was like, maybe I'll go to hair school. So I went to cosmetology school or beauty school, and I graduated. So I have a trade degree. I tried cutting hair for a little bit, but I really, really didn't enjoy doing it. Surprisingly, touching other people and talking to them was not my preference, which now is so obvious to me, but at the time was not so obvious. And I always say this, and if you've heard me present before or see me before, I definitely am happy to say that I am much better at selling free library services than I ever was at getting people to buy shampoo that they don't need. I also worked at a cell phone store for a little bit, and the same rules apply. I could not, in my good faith, give someone a smartphone when they came in with a flip phone and that's all they wanted. So I wasn't so good at the upsell. I am at the library, but not in where there's money exchanged. So after that, I got my first salaried job in a branch that was newly opening in Carroll County. And at that point, I kind of just fell into library work, and I moved into that part-time salaried circulation role. And then eventually I was a full-time circulation clerk. And then eventually I was a supervisor of the shelvers in my branch. And so kind of like an assistant circ manager, and eventually became the circ manager of a branch in Carroll County for about 5 years. And I've made it to my current position as a non-degreed library worker. And when I came to Baltimore County, it was definitely a fresh start for me. I was newly turning 30 in just a couple of days. I think it was like 4 days or something. I was gearing up to move to Baltimore City, and I was going through the challenging process of going through a divorce and a separation. But what it really did for me was really set me on the path I am on now for my leadership, where I'm more vulnerable. I've perfected my communication and collaboration skills over the years, and I still have lots more to learn and grow in. I have found ways to decrease my work-related stress, which was a huge thing that I really wanted to do in coming to Baltimore County, and increase my empathy, as well as doing things that really scared me, like this, getting back on stage and presenting with you today. So unlike Levi, I mostly did theater in high school, but I have always been a really big musical theater fan, and I'm early 2025. My favorite musical is Waitress, because it depicts how making mistakes and being vulnerable, having passion, and just the depth that we all hold within ourselves. And if you think I won't be bringing it up again, you are silly. So I'm going to send it over back to Levi to tell us about what we're going to cover today.
I don't know, Anita, I would probably buy anything you're selling. So even a bridge to nowhere, I'd probably buy from you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, Anita, thank you so much. We're so looking forward to running through our full agenda with you all today. So what are we going to be doing? Number one, we're going to open up with why are we even talking about theater today at a circulation or library circulation conference. We're going to talk about the shared elements of different workplaces. Then we're going to take a perspective of a performer or an actor through most of the things that we talk about today. And we're going to move on to understanding and shaping your role through a lens as an actor. And then next, we're going to move on to rehearsal. So as if we're moving through the process that an actor or creative would move through, we're going to discuss the self-work and teamwork that we can all be doing in our workplace. Then we're gearing up closer to showtime, everybody, with dress rehearsals and previews, using feedback and the opportunity to work together to shape your role, to have a finer focus on yourself and your potential and your future self. And then next, folks, get ready. It's showtime. Curtain up, lights on, hear the overture. It's time to put it all together and get ready to perform each day. And then, as Anita said, we'll wrap up with some questions and answers. Hopefully, although we both are long-winded and can tend to talk, we will try and work hard to save some time at the end to hear any questions from you. I know that we're both going to be in attendance at the in-person conference tomorrow, so come up and ask us any questions too, if you'd like. So we hope today, through our presentation, that you are able to identify 3 tools to increase your self-awareness at work. We hope that you are able to demonstrate 3 techniques to increase effectiveness in communication and listening. And we hope to help you uncover 3 ways to enhance your perspective and positively impact teamwork. So we hope using a theater production as an analogy to help you uncover ways to increase self-awareness to help you grow professionally and grow your professional relationships for a balanced work environment and experience. Using the lens of a different workplace to view your work experience will hopefully provide an opportunity to refocus perspectives on what is possible and positive to have you feeling like a star in your role. So get ready for all this theater cheesiness and positivity, folks. So first of all, why theater? Why are we talking about theater at a conference for library circulation? Well, first of all, as we've already said, we're both fans of live theater, especially musicals. Storytelling through theater can bring a heightened experience to complex stories. Sometimes these stories can provide a reflection for ourselves to provide us with a different lens with which we can view the world around us. But why us at this conference? Well, as we've already said, we're both library professionals and we both have experience in library circulation. We both have believed and experienced that the library workplace can be a place of connection and growth, much like the environment of a theater. Also, and I know that Paula has heard me say this over and over and over again, but circulation is truly the heart of the library. Circ is central to the experience of our customers and our community. Circ is central to supporting the work of others in the library ecosystem. While fundamental to operations, though, it can sometimes feel like an undervalued or overlooked role. Circ is often the entry point for a career, but also the limit if higher graded positions have academic or certification requirements. And Circ can sometimes be the focus of negative customer interactions that can be a little hard to shake off or let go. Now, we were really, really grateful to have your honest and transparent feedback filled out in a questionnaire. As Anita mentioned, it gave us an opportunity to know who will be showing up today, what kind of experiences you'll be bringing with you, and hopefully some things that we can talk to today. Now, many of you expressed an interest in professional and/or skill growth, but you see barriers in your way, whether they're internal or external barriers. And most of you believe others see your role as fundamental to the success of the organization or to the success of a customer's experience in our libraries, supporting the work of your internal customers, important to the customer experience, and contributing to the work of the team and the goals of your library. But why use a theater analogy? Theater is a live environment, thriving on the interaction between people, the production, and the audience. It's an interaction, and the interaction is a cyclical one that has phases of information that is revealed, informed, and propels. But collaboration is a key element in theater, one that is likely shared in all of our work environments, unless you are owning and operating your own personal private library. Collaboration is key, and performing or acting elements are applied also in learning and therapy exercises in the world we live in, such as drama therapy, and I'm sure all of us have been a part of training through role-playing or reenactments. Drama is considered a process of creating imaginary worlds, wherein the perspectives afforded by these worlds are the basis for learning through drama. Drama, even more than other storytelling and other fictional processes, employs the world-creating and hypothetical processes some have attributed to the basic learning processes which permeate our daily lives and life experiences. Now, theater or drama can help us change how we adapt to and play out our roles at work to be both happier and more productive. Work is a lot like the stage, a space where we put on masks and play out our roles. Our jobs inevitably make us build walls to protect our weak spots and show a strong front. And while this may seem logical at the beginning, it eventually serves to distance us from one another, breeding mistrust and misunderstandings while amplifying fears and judgments. But the free-flowing, playful, collaborative, and imaginative world of the theater opens up new avenues for us to challenge ourselves, nurture our creativities, and work better together. Next slide, please. For her blog post on People Matters, Anusha Daga identifies 8 ways in which theater can help us connect best and bring out the best in ourselves as well as within our teams. These ways are connect, listen, empathize, focus, expand, feel, think, and let go. When we connect, we can make our workplace alive with stronger interpersonal dynamics. Theater uses a range of interactions, exchanges, and teamwork, which throw people into scenarios where they need to work together. Team members must learn more about each other's skills, challenges, motivations, and perspectives to work better together. In listening, we often hear without listening, especially at work, where our mind can be preoccupied with several things at once. But without listening, a team is just a group of people working on their own agenda. Just like any other skill, listening can be learned and practiced with tools like attention, visualization, patience, empathy, and an open mind. All of these are skills that theater proactively encourages. Theater also encourages empathizing. In theater, we often work in pairs, where the core idea is to support the partner, your scene partner, by making them look better, bringing out their strengths, and encouraging their learning and progress. Hence, we move from stepping onto toes to stepping into shoes and really begin to see from another's perspective. Focus is a great quality of theater. Techniques like improv and visualization demand concentration from both mind and body. To first imagine a role and then commit to it. This means disregarding old preconceived ideas of oneself, freeing the mind from extraneous thoughts so it becomes attuned to a new reality. This helps laser focus the concentration on the task at hand and become more present in the moment. Techniques that come in handy when the to-dos pile up or the distractions cannot be avoided. We also experience expansion or expanding. In the theater, your mind will play with new ideas, new perspectives, and opinions, opening up the mind to different ways of thinking and being. Because on the stage, we don't believe there are any bad ideas. To think differently, we must first let go of our old notions, and this can only be done with a receptive, flexible, and even playful mind that is willing to explore the unknown. And of course, the feelings. Not every situation requires rational and linear thinking. We all have an inner voice, a gut feeling, an instinct. When cultivated, this can help us express ourselves better, make quicker and better decisions, and often avoid pitfalls. Theater reaches out to this voice by opening up new avenues for self-expression, from movement and gestures to words, music, mime, and much, much more. But we also have to be thinking upon your thinking game, or up your thinking game by going beyond the comfortable patterns your mind is used to. Theater offers us unique challenges to assess and respond to different situations in a make-believe setup where just about anything goes. So there literally is no limit to your creativity. Let your gray cells loose into the plethora of possibilities and nurture the all too important skill of non-linear thinking. And lastly, letting go. Having no inhibitions. In theater, we make funny faces. We strike weird poses, make loud noises, even talk to imaginary people or dance to music when no one can hear. I went through a whole semester of doing nothing but movement to music for 2 hours, 3 days a week. There are no limits to where your imagination can take you. And as you ride on your creative instinct, you will feel a sense of abandonment, especially of the self, coaxing you to shed inhibitions, break away from stereotypes, and really come into your own with confidence and panache. In all these ways, theater helps enhance self-awareness and also heightens our awareness and understanding of others. So individuals can perform better, enjoy work, reap satisfaction, connect with one another, and build stronger, more productive, and more creative teams. So perhaps using another workplace as an example will be helpful to illuminate some ways of thinking that may have been hard to apply to the work environment in front of you. We'll be speaking from places of experiences and curiosity, providing perspective based in practice. And that's real practice. Practice means a willingness to fail and be imperfect. And we have both experienced failures and learning lessons through them. But practice that is successful or a failure is still that. It's experience. Practice, which is experience, and one should be willing to experience while also learn through that experience. And don't worry if you aren't familiar with theater or performance, or you don't have a favorite show, or you've never heard a show tune, or if you happen to even hate theater. There is a lot of theater to hate on, and I'm looking at you, Cats. You
And
don't
that's
have...
not, I'm so sorry. That's just unfair to Cats. You're telling me Mr. Mistopheles doesn't get the honor?
Not today, not today. Nope. And especially not after that disastrous movie, right, folks? Right. You don't have to have experience or appreciation, especially of Andrew Lloyd Webber, and we'll present new concepts in a way that brings the idea back, hopefully, to your workplace. Thank you, Caitlin. I appreciate that. I'm happy to have any dragging on Andrew Lloyd Webber musical discussions tomorrow with you in person at the conference.
Well, and he dares say that during our run through yesterday when I was wearing a cat sweatshirt. And it felt very pointed yesterday. So of course I didn't wear that today.
Okay, Anita, next slide. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be really our perspective, our theater perspective, our theater lens that we're going to be wearing today is going to be mostly from a performer's perspective. And many of the concepts that we'll be talking about will be more from that perspective, mostly because that's our experience, but also performers are at the center, right? They're in the spotlight, they are live on stage and feeling that energy. So we'll be doing a lot of scene setting through that perspective. And the structure that we're working through today is kind of a loose theater production structure. So you got the part. But what led you here? What are the knowns, the unchangeable facts? I'm going to be doing some scene setting in this next section and analogizing our workplace and the theater environment. Now, when an actor, designer, director, theater person prepares, they're going to be digging deep into questions for things like the setting, characters, story, conflict. These are the things that exist before you even get the role, the things that are on paper that are setting up the world. This is research and reflection that tells them what they are walking into, sets the direction for choices they will make, and helps to determine the goals. So let's look at the things that have already happened for the creative in their work environment, but let's also look at how they can relate to an organization that you are a part of. First, it's the setting. This is going to be the script, the casting audition process, the production schedule and detail. The script is, of course, the book, the item, the story that the actor is going to be taking in. For us in our work environments, this can be your job descriptions. This can be the mission, strategic plan, and organizational goals of the organization that you work with. You choose to audition for this script and accept this role in this story. Next, you have the casting and auditions. This is quite simply just the interview and hiring process, where there's an engagement of you learning more about the role and others learning more about you and how you would perform that role. And then we have the basic structures of a production schedule and timeline. For us, this can be our schedule, our task or project timelines. This can also be our fiscal year evaluations and also our annual goals that are set up for us that we're working towards every fiscal year. Next slide, please. We also have the characters of the world of the script, but also the world of the production. This would be the actors and the crew, the director, the understudies or stand-ins, and of course the audience. For us, the actors and crew are the staff, us, our internal customers. The director is going to be our supervisor or leader. They continue to articulate the vision and they coach or stage everyone to bring forth the vision of the department, of the branch, of the organization. Fundamentally, and sometimes forgotten, we also have our understudies. These are the people waiting in the wings to step in for us. These are the people who support your work when you're not there. The responsibility to one another exists beyond the stage lights and into the wings. The acceptance that things will happen without you is important, and building trust in those to step in and fill your void and lead the direction for others that day. You will not always be there to experience, but the trust in others to experience will go very far. And then lastly, we have our audience. This is our customers, our external customers. We can think of these as like our subscription ticket buyers, our returning customers. The actor's awareness of their impact on the audience is like our awareness of our impact on our customers and their experience with us. Every production member has a role, individual and shared responsibilities, and must do the homework at every stage of the production. Next slide. And then, of course, there's the action. This is the story that's being told, the real-time stuff, the elements of the action. This is the cause and effect, what propels the story further. This can be intentional, unintentional. It can have conflict. It can have celebration, emotions, fear, confidence, excitement. All of these things propel the story that we are telling and informing the experience. So, knowing the script, the setting, the cast of characters in order to perform your role on stage is just as important as to being able to perform your role at the library. The setting is our organization's mission, vision, and core values. The characters are our internal and external customers. And the action are our shared goals and the processes we use to achieve them. Knowing these things, the facts to this moment, allow you to have a grounding in where you are to be able to operate from and feel free to fly, let go, and soar. So next, we're going to talk to you about tools and skills, how an actor prepares for their role and their experience in a show. The actor's tools and skills A creative uses tools like costumes, props, sets, and research, and practice skills to tell their story. The tools inform from the outside, and the skills inform from the inside. Tools and skills contribute to the storytelling. They lend authenticity to the experience being created. And it's all about the stories we're telling others and the story we're telling ourselves about what we are seeing. It is about your sharing your experiences, but also challenging your experiences for opportunities to see and learn. We should accept the need to challenge ourselves and the story that we are telling ourselves. So Anita, tell us a little bit about the costumes and props that we use in the workplace.
Yeah, so it's so funny to do this presentation because I often refer to who I am at work as acting. And I don't mean that in a way that I am inauthentic to myself, but more so that I understand that there are things required of me that may not always align with my personal opinions of what should happen or how it should work. And this also means I have to wrap my head around something or eventually or initially, and then set aside those personal feelings. So for me, this triggers me to begin to think a little bit outside of myself. I also view costuming very much the same way. I try to align how I present to others to be within the dress code as much as possible. And it might slightly differ from what I wear at work. It might overlap a little bit, but I have a separation to that. So if I get dressed for an interview, I may scale up what I'm wearing more than I normally do. Or if I'm networking, I might skew my dress a little bit differently than I would if I'm in the office. So costuming is important within a theater environment because it informs the audience about the character. This could be to represent their social position, their personality, or even their gender expression. So costuming can work the same way within a work environment. It is helpful to remember that this as we examine our definition of professionalism and consider the expectations of our job. Costuming is a tool for you to use to present at work the way you would like. I know the old idea was dress for the job that you want, but I say this with the freshest breath of air that I do not think that is needed. Dressing for the job you have and the responsibilities it requires allows you to be comfortable as you prefer within your position. For example, I wear shorts at work pretty often because the office area where I work is very hot in the summer. We're talking 78, we're talking 79, and it is humid, it is swampy, and I cannot be bothered to put on full pants sometimes. I need my calves to be free. So the length of my shorts is honestly as long as maybe my dresses and skirts I have, but this mostly allows me to do the physical responsibilities of my job more comfortably. Put those books into the bins, clean those cards from the head to toe, all that good stuff. So for props, the way that I look at this is something that you can use to support your work better, to try to work a little bit differently, looking at things a little bit differently. It's something that adds to who you are at work. So for me, the way that I like to connect that to this, the theater concept is that you can use this as a way to connect with colleagues within and outside of your organization to increase your visibility and understanding of things outside of your own experience. I talked about that a little bit about coming to the technical services department and how that kind of opened up my perspective. It was very hard to see and understand how technical services worked until I was actually in the environment and saw what they were doing. So the Maryland Library Association is a great way to do this and to start building your network. You'll find new ways to connect with those within your system and find new connections outside of your system. Many systems are participating in an affiliate membership. If you're not aware of that, your system may be one of those folks. So you can connect with different people in various positions, either one similar to you or a little bit different. One thing that was sort of an unanticipated positive to being part of the Maryland Library Association for me was that when I came to Baltimore County, by that point, I had worked with several people that already were in the county, but through the Maryland Library Association. So it was a lot less scary to interact with people and to go in there with some friendly faces. So that sort of was something I wouldn't have anticipated or expected. So the other thing that you can do and how you can use the Maryland Library Association, which from here on, I will say MLA just to save my mouth. So if you're someone who is interested in transitioning from a circulation role to a children's librarian role, there is a children's services division. If you're interested in moving into a leadership role, there's the leadership development division. I had the acronyms in my notes, so then my brain stalled. So you can start to build that network outside of your own role, and it allows you to engage in that perspective shift and thinking a little bit differently about the library and where your role is, and kind of understand how other organizations work. The Maryland Library Association also has lots of academic and private libraries involved, so you can get an idea of how another library environment works that might be different than your own. So the other thing that you can do is engage in conversations with new folks within your organization at system-wide teams. I don't know about you, but I tend to stick with who I am comfortable with as much as the next person. But I try to talk to someone new at system-wide teams or get on a subgroup with people that I haven't worked with before to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and hear some new perspectives. I also recommend looking at building your network in LinkedIn and reconnecting with old and new colleagues. When I was thinking about a position recently, I reached out to an old colleague I actually had worked with through MLA to find out how they felt about their new role and how it was working, caught up with them a little bit and got a little bit more insight into that position and whether I would be interested in applying to it. This is like a little secret thing that not a lot of people know about me, but I am deeply interested in working one day at the library it's at the Winterthur House and Gardens in Delaware. It's one of my bucket list places to work. Not anytime soon, but definitely interested. So because of that, I reached out to the director on LinkedIn and I made a connection with her. She told me to let her know the next time I was visiting, so because she would love to meet me in person, and I'm hoping would give me a really cool back of the stage tour. I don't know, well, TBD. So another thing that you can do is also follow your system's guideline on job shadowing to get a different perspective of your system. So that goes back to that whole thing where I wish I had a little bit more insight on how technical services worked, because I think it would have helped my brain as a branch worker so much, but I have the hindsight now, which is nice. Being curious along the way when you're at a job shadowing experience, that what you may believe to be true could be challenged through that process. Like I said, prior to working in headquarters or the administrative offices, it was very hard for me to understand why technical services works the way it does. And coming into this role, I really had to set aside those preconceptions or pre-notions or whatever that I had, and allowed my staff in the department and in the branches to tell me about the work the department does. This allowed me to be a little bit more open-minded and truly challenge what I thought to be true. By increasing your visibility it's also a really great way to have people start thinking about you for groups and future projects that might be coming up. These could be things that give you a new career experience to touch on during a future interview. And if you are comfortable with where you are, this also provides an opportunity for you to re-engage in the work that you're doing, get to know some new people, make some new connections, all of that good stuff. By having a good idea of the core roles of your job, you can also strategically find new opportunities that still ensure that you are doing the main functions of your job. Ultimately, your supervisor should also be able to guide this as well and approve new opportunities that fit into your job description, which, by the way, amazing segue for myself to character research. So part of character research for an actor going through a theater play is to go through a script page by page, making notes, and you can do the same thing with your job description. Something I recommend doing is ensuring you understand your character. What is the role that you are playing? What are the key parts of this role? What characteristics are needed to do this job well? And one way to do that is to examine your job description and use this as a tool to better understand the role you are playing. Looking at my job description now that I have been in my position for almost 6 years, I can get a feel for what is expected of me, but also see if there is anything that I'm not presently doing or not doing often that I could work on. An example of this is one of my essential functions is to analyze problems, performs assessments, and adapt. These are always so wordy, so I apologize. Analyze problems, performs assessments, and adapts existing BCPL practices and accepted processing guidelines to achieve desired results. So if I'm not presently examining ways to boost efficiencies within my department, I would begin to look into that more. What barriers are present that prevent the team from working more efficiently? Additionally, I can loop my supervisor in on this discussion on how they view approaching this area of my job description and asking for her input to improve the department or how I should tackle this. So for Levi's position, one of his essential functions is to participate in and support planning and implementation of system-wide programs, events, outreach, and scheduled circulation staff and outreach events. I know it's a windy one.
Wow, I didn't do that.
So it's funny that I picked this one because Levi was just on the news talking about FCPL's programming. So we know that he's doing this part of the job, but let's pretend that he isn't for 1 second. So if he had not participated in a system-wide program, event, outreach in a while, he could discuss with his supervisor if this is something that he could do. Both of these examples help showcase opportunities to re-engage with where you are and find new ways to approach your position. We recognize not everyone has an interest or is able to make a career move, and some folks are content where they are. So looking at new ways to re-engage in the great work you are doing can help you reconnect to your job. If collaboration is important to your position, this can inform what training needs you may have and allows you to engage in the growth areas for yourself. If my job description includes shelving or assisting customers on digital resources, but I rarely do it, I would be able to ask my supervisor to try to figure out how to get more experience in this, and then get their input on how to implement that. Using your job description and finding areas you focused on less or you haven't done yet is a way to re-engage in the work that you were doing. You can also use your job description to talk about your role in your resume or in an interview if you aren't already. And looking at your job description is also a good tool to understand feedback from your supervisor. If my supervisor asks me to be ready to discuss how we input material into our ILS system, to our CEO, or to our circulation managers, I have to be able to make that a priority because it falls within my job description to understand the work that we do so that I can better advocate for changes and also hear feedback from the branches, but also be able to increase their awareness. In addition to this, I also think it's important to understand why you want to stay in your present position or why you want to be promoted. Which brings me to a story I would like to tell you that speaks to what you were able to change and shift your perspective to see something a new way. So in 2021, a vacancy announcement came out for a position that I was really excited that we were hiring for, just as a baseline for the system, but I was also excited to apply for it. At the time, I didn't have my AA and I had not planned on going back to school. So I applied despite that it required a bachelor's degree. I luckily got an interview and I felt that it went very well. So then the hiring manager, the HR manager, asked for a meeting with me. She let me know, and honestly, I will say when she was like, "Can we have a meeting?" I already kind of knew that maybe I didn't get it. I'll be honest. So I was sweating going into that room. I didn't really want to walk in, but I did it. And I was very proud of myself because it was hard to move those feet down that hall. She let me know I didn't get the position and I wasn't selected. And that was due in part because of the educational requirements and what the person they selected had. They had a bachelor's degree, they had a graduate degree, and they also had a lot of experience in HR and also had some certifications that they were looking for. So it was hard to hear the rejection, although I was very excited for the system for this person, and I still am. The HR manager had asked me what my educational goals were. I explained to her, and I will be honest, through tears, I was like pretty sad. I explained to her that I was apprehensive about going back to school due to it being challenging for me intellectually. School is not my favorite thing. I find it very overwhelming. I have not always felt like the best student. And so it's a stressful experience for me, but also I was concerned about the demands time-wise, given my previous experience of working full-time and going to in-person classes at the community college when I was at my last job. She suggested I consider her alma mater, UMGC, which allows you to take 8-week classes, participate as you have time, and it was very easy for her to fit it into her life in her 40s to get her bachelor's degree and her graduate degree. I took all of that in, I waited a day, and then I looked up UMGC and applied probably within a day or two of that conversation. That rejection and her willingness to encourage me to change my perspective allowed me to see pathways where I had imagined closed doors. And the funniest thing about it is after I got in, I told my best friend, and LOL, she was enrolled in the same school. So despite having someone so close to me going to the same school, it really took hearing another person's experience that I respected as much as I would my best friend to present it in a new way. And that shifted my point of view to make that career move. So it was a big deal.
Well, and I love your analyzation of that story, right? And taking a different perspective on your feelings and the potential of that conversation. And being able to analyze a story, being able to dig deep into the nuggets of what's happening and what those feelings are is a tool that actors and a lot of creatives will use to get a deeper understanding and to reveal things about the character or the story. It is a tool that becomes a skill. You devise or take in different approaches to analyzing a story and taking on different perspectives in such a way that it becomes the lens with which you look through every situation. So we're going to take this analyzing the story as a tool and shape it into now a skill. Analyzing the story is just being able to identify what's being said on the inside of the story. And one way to do this is to analyze the story structure. In large organizations, we may only bring a part of ourselves to the workplace. If you're part-time, you may have less of an opportunity to share your whole self. If you're full-time, you may be too busy or spread out too thin, and you may have less opportunity to share your whole self. If we want to communicate empathetically and build relationships with coworkers, important social resources, personal storytelling is one way we can strengthen our communication skills. And being able to structure a story and to be able to better tell it and have and share a perspective is a tool and skill that anybody can develop. Next slide, please. So sometimes the emotion of what we are trying to express can keep us from making the point we want to make or from expressing at all. And one way that you can take analyzing a story or the story from being a tool into a skill is by practicing a consistent information delivery tool or consistent story structure. And we can practice structuring our narratives by having a shared information delivery tool, a tool to draw on when we feel it might help and give us strength or a foundation to work from. One approach is as simple as identifying the characters, conflict, struggle, and the goal of the story that you're seeing or that you're telling yourself. This is the CCSG approach. It's a structure. And again, that's characters, conflict, struggle, and goal. And you're identifying every one of these items within the story that you are seeing or telling. We usually know the point or the bit that we're trying to land, and giving some more thought to the context and the structure of it all can be helpful as well as freeing. One other way or approach to analyze a story or a situation is deeply observing what's called the trigger and the heap, which is an endless cycle. The trigger is the first event of the action that permits the heap or the second event to occur. It is a cyclical process. The heap then becomes the trigger of the next action, and the cycle continuously repeats itself, a never-ending journey of triggers and heaps. So analyze yourself, your triggers, and your resulting heaps. When we think about these, this self-reflection can build resilience. Another great tool is one that's used more in professional and corporate settings, and that's called the 5 whys. This is a technique that's used for really drilling into the issue or the root of a challenge or a problem. It's an iterative, interrogative technique used to explore the cause and effect relationships underlying a particular problem. This is not a tool that's born out of the theater environment. It is a part of the Toyota production system approach and is an essential approach to their problem-solving techniques. When applying this to a story or character analyzation, these things ultimately begin to appear real to you, and you're able to understand a story, actions, and decisions with greater depth and conviction. Next slide, please. One other skill is developing effective tactics. And for us, and in this setting today, it's going to be tactics for communication and for listening. Now, communication, I think we've all heard this over and over and over again, but it is a true thing, is key. Verbal and nonverbal communication. But also, listening is just as important. In theater, close attention is paid to all types of communication. Each verbal and nonverbal expression is recognized because it is filled with important information. In the theater, work centers on sending clear messages and decoding nonverbal signals. When we ignore nonverbals, we miss clues that reveal levels of engagement in a project or a team. Too many of us can be afraid of our emotions and convinced that there is no way to communicate safely and effectively when emotions are acknowledged. But there are proven best practices to ensure safe, effective communication, even when emotions are powerfully in play. These techniques can include I statements and active listening. I'm sure many of us are familiar with I statements. They allow you to focus on your own feelings and experiences. The Boston University Faculty Development and Diversity Division says that an I statement focuses on your feelings and experiences. It does not focus on your perspective of what the other person has done or failed to do. It is the difference, for example, between saying, I feel that I am not being permitted to participate in projects to the extent that others are, and you always let that person work on office projects, but you never ask me if I'm interested. If you can express your experience in a way that does not attack, criticize, or blame others, you are less likely to provoke defensiveness and hostility, which tends to escalate conflicts, or have the other person shut down and tune you out, which tends to stifle communication. Nothing is more deadly than a pregnant pause on the stage, that stifling of the energy or barrier to the forward momentum of the action. When a person feels that they are being blamed, whether rightly or wrongly, it's common that they respond with defensiveness. I statements are a simple way of speaking that will help to avoid this trap by reducing feelings of blame. A good I statement takes responsibility for one's own feelings while tactfully describing a problem that connects to those feelings. There's also active listening. Real listening is about listening as a form of communication that is just as dynamic as speaking and is as appreciated as such. Sometimes it's appreciated even more than speaking. This is about being in the moment, being present. 4 ways that most connected people practice active listening are through preparation. Preparation allows you to have your mind alert and open to what is in front of you. Being present and engaged, having a clear mind and a focus on the speaker in front of you. My best recommendation and approach to that is just the simple pause and trying to shed your mind of everything that's happening in that moment. I have a tendency to lean on a mantra internally to kind of refocus and quickly center myself to what's in front of me. Being present and engaged communicates a willingness to be open and receptive to what you are taking in. But we also do this by paying attention with all of our senses, a heightened sense of a listening, taking in those cues in any which way that we can. And we also do this by viewing them, by people connected practice active listening by viewing themselves in the third person. This is a great technique if you can begin to develop it and implement it as frequently as possible. And this is using what's called the aesthetic awareness, being aware of how you're perceived. Try to see yourself as your audience sees you. But observing our emotions is the first critical step to compassionately admit the emotional undercurrent, the subtext of our daily interactions, which is always there, whether you're aware of it or not. It is present with you, with your internal customers, and with your external customers. We can use this ready source of feedback to make our workplaces happier and healthier. We also want to stay connected, engage in communication, and participate in listening. If anyone knows what it's like, it's the people doing the work alongside you, your team. And I'm pretty well known for saying this, but none of us are mind readers. I don't possess that skill, and honestly, I refuse to learn how to mind read. I've got too many other things in my mind. This is not to say, though, that communication is easy, that we're all at the same level, or that it doesn't take work. It's important to remember that things change, and communication needs don't get a pass from that evolutionary need. As we reflect on how our settings change, how the story changes, we should also try to recognize what needs what are the needs and the consequences of those changes. Communication skills are shaped over time and through experience and through practice and through failure. And we shouldn't expect it to be a frozen skill set. It's one that needs reflection and usually benefits from examining for adaptation needs, whether it's permanent adaptation or in the moment adaptation. And there are active components at play in successful communication, elements or foundations of communication and listening. Those elements include, for communication, the clarity of message, checking in for understanding with your audience, taking turns, being aware of giving people that cue for their opportunity to engage, of course, active listening, choosing the right method. That would be walking in with what you know about what needs to be said, that preparation bit, and applying the right method to reach the goal or share the story. Appropriate body language. We want to appear open and relaxed and available, not closed off or distracted. And then, of course, all of that contributes to a deeper self-awareness. Important elements of listening are to be curious, remain curious, and ask others questions, being engaged in the stories of others and responding to what you are hearing. Waiting to listen, not waiting to speak. Listening for the cues individuals are giving you, so being open to what's being said verbally and non-verbally, showing respect and supporting perspectives. It's part of that reflecting back. And reflect on that conversation and don't be afraid to follow up. Communication skills take practice that we're willing to do outside of work and at work. Look for opportunities to explore in your personal and home conversations. Learn through what you're taking in when observing, listening in, or even eavesdropping. Listen to not what only is being said, but how it is being said. So be intentional and join discussions. Be intentional and aware. Motivation is often the subtext or the story behind every aspect of the scene. Try to be open to what that subtext is. And being transparent with your motivation and aware of the motivations of others, therefore, is important, especially if you're a leader or you're seeking to be one. People see our motivation. Then they understand you and their purpose in the workplace and their work much better and more clearly. Join discussions and engage and feel the feeling. Feeling the feelings is often where we can get trapped or hung up, right? And taking risks is important. Being able to let go of those feelings is taking a risk. Being able to feel and process those feelings rather than compartmentalize and put them away, to be able to move forward is taking a risk. But also feel the freedom to improv and recognize what creative freedoms are possible when you let go of the fears and simply engage without risk of failure. It is all about the story we are telling. What's the story you are telling? It's the story we're telling ourselves, the story we're telling our partners in the scene, the story we're telling our audience. It's all about the story we're telling ourselves about what we are seeing. It is about your sharing your experiences, but also challenging your experiences, challenging that narrative, that internal monologue, challenging your experiences for opportunities to see anew and learn differently. And we must do the work to tell the clearest and intentional of stories. So now we've got the part, we have our tools ready, we've developed and we're applying new skills. Folks, it's time to rehearse and play within the story. So I'm going to talk a little bit about rehearsing as an individual, exploring the possibilities inside your mind, and then I'm going to talk a lot more about rehearsing as a team. So when we're rehearsing as an individual, we're exploring the possibilities inside of us. Remember, a lot of that for the actor, for the creative, is going to be that script work, that story analyzation. Remember the approaches and the tactics that you can take to analyzing the script in front of you. Remember to reflect back on, refresh your mind using your job description of who you are and what the heck you're supposed to be doing there, especially if you feel like you've lost some sight. Do the script work and the analyzation of the story you are telling yourself. Also, be willing to let go of your siloed perspective. Explore perspectives, possibilities, and pathways for different character understandings, for a different understanding of the story, or just to have a clarity of the message that's being shared or trying to be landed. Also, use your own experience and develop alternatives to your self-reflection. Try to self-reflect and see a different story that's being told. Many performers are trained to use their own experiences to connect to experiences outside their own. Some would say this is a method style of performing. This is using emotions that are ingrained or experiences that are part of who you are and translating them onto another character's experience or another story that's being told. This is deep thinking about your personal experience. It's a willingness to have a different perspective on the feelings and the experience that you've had and try to connect it to someone else or something else. It has the potential to breed empathy and a different level of understanding. While we can't control how things are received, we can try to be intentional with how we are coming across. So be willing to take in self-reflection and be willing to have a different self-reflection than what you initially had. Next slide, please. Now, we also wanted to rehearse with the team. This is where a lot of the magic happens. This is where we're really putting things into practice with one another, where that collaboration alchemy begins. One way to do this is to learn to explore, and the only way to explore is to let it go. Now, I'm just going to say Frozen is another one of those shows and movies that I really can't stand. And every time I say this and think of this, yes, I hear the song. I'm working really hard not to sing it right now. But that freedom to fly, that freedom to soar is what we're talking about. And one way to let it go is to people, don't take yourself so seriously, okay? Be willing to play, be willing to experiment, be willing to fail in front of other people and show them that, yes, you are human too. Furthermore, just accept the fact that has been there all along. You're human, you're biological, and it's only natural to have feelings and to not feel your best. We all make mistakes. We all have nagging voices in our heads. You're only human, which means, though, that you are biological. How can we have a different perspective on our mistakes? How can we control those nagging voices in our heads? We take a mental pause. We lean into that mantra that we connect to and helps recenter ourselves. Calming breaths, mental and physical breaks, affirmations, these are all a part of being human. Breathing, letting your body have the space and elements that it needs to be able to freely think and accept. So find ways to let it go. Find ways to feel free and to simply move forward. But it's also really, really important to learn what is possible, to be open to the fact that things are possible. We can do this through perspective taking and possibility exploration. One way that actors do this is through repetition work. This is sitting in front of one another, having one line that I say and one line that you say, and we're going to repeat it back and forth and back and forth. And there were some college courses where we would do this for hours on end. And what it does is it allows you to re-examine that phrase for more of what's there, more meaning. And you also, when you're doing it with somebody else, you are then responding to the new way in which they are communicating the same things over and over and over again. This is repetition work. It's, yes, confirming the things in your mind, but it's also allowing your mind to react and explore in new and free ways. We can do this, again, by self-reflection. We can do this by reflecting on what occurred and what will occur, but with an open mind to the context and the option of different possibilities. When I do this, I try to have an optimistic lens or viewpoint to be able to have a new view and a positive view. We can also learn what is possible by assuming an outward mindset. This is a mindset that focuses on others rather than inside of myself. It allows us to genuinely see others and their needs, their objectives and challenges, rather than focusing on our own. Options occur to us that never were there before when we do this, when we take on an outward mindset, let go of our own internal struggle and try to see the outward struggle of others. It's also about minding your ABCs. Always be curious. Always ask why. Always ask what. Always take that pause and ask. Ask yourself and try to ask to learn more. So always be curious. I also like this, and it's also a Kander and Ebb show tune. So what? Gail Tolstoy Miller, in her TEDx titled Unconscious Bias, says asking yourself, so what, is a pause. It's a self-check, and it helps you remove your emotional clutter. It's freeing. It's that letting go. So what? It also helps you to focus on what is important by questioning the facts and judgments that you use to make decisions, that are your reaction, that are your response. When you have those reactions and responses, try to instigate a pause that says, so what? Who cares if I feel that way? And I know I've already said this, but it's so, so important, I think, to the human process, but especially the acting process. Feel the feelings. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. In order to feel the fire, feel the feelings, you have to be willing to not always listen to that no inside your head. Be willing to challenge it and be willing to walk close to that fire and feel the burn. I would say probably the most important tool that I have used in rehearsing with others and exploring perspectives, possibilities, and paths, which really connect to some of these other things. It's a willingness to say yes. The danger of saying no is that it shuts off creativity. There is a very important and fundamental approach to improv. Anybody that's been to improv, or especially has participated in it, has probably heard this. And it's a simple practice of yes and. Saying yes and is a fundamental element of improvisational theater. In his book, Steal the Show, How to Guarantee a Standing Ovation for All the Performances in Your Life, Michael Port says that as a strategic tactic, saying yes and helps us to look at creativity, collaboration, and problem solving as a way to maintain momentum, regardless of the negativity or problems that come our way. Improv fundamentally is not about being funny. It is not about having amazing and incredible acting talent. It's about being attentive and having the willingness to deliver on your promises in the scene. What you see in theater and what you see in the workplace with improv is this. The ones who commit and don't back away, the ones who say yes and what's next, are the ones who produce extraordinary results. When we have a narrow focus on what we fear and not what's possible, when we're stuck looking backwards on our path and not looking at the paths for our journey ahead, we're not moving. You're not learning. And as one of my favorite ladies of the musical theater says, regrets of yesterday and fears of tomorrow can kill you. Thank you, Liza Minnelli. You are crazy if you thought I wasn't going to get a musical diva into this presentation, and especially Miss Minnelli. When we're individually able to let go, see a different view, and say yes to what's possible, we begin to explore together. We're collaborating on that forward momentum and direction, but we're also building strong relationships and a network of respect, trust, and potential. Ultimately, what we're doing is we're creating an ensemble of players that thrive on teamwork, that are telling a shared story and are moving forward together. In her study, The Authentic Workplace, Theatrical Practices in the Corporate World, Catherine Dumas notes, when practicing theater, the very first expectation is teamwork. Theater artists are encouraged to think of the play as something greater than oneself. And in doing so, they abandon their individual egos and try to embrace all ideas, no matter who they come from, no matter where they are informed. The artists are all part of a creative team, and they must let themselves be authentic in their needs, open in their approach, and people-centered in their individual leadership style. These relationships give us freedom to inform our individual reflection, view, and potential. So next, we're entering our preview or dress rehearsal phase. This is the phase of a production where we're bringing our performance into focus. We're making decisions and committing to choices to refine the story and clarify the experience we want all to have. So take us into the nerve-wracking process of dress rehearsals and previews, Anita.
Well, I don't know if I'll take us so far in, but I'll take us at least to the tip of it, if that sounds good. So one of my, as you know, my favorite musical is Waitress. And one of my favorite parts about the musical is how it explores the thoughts of the main character, Jenna. There are scenes where Jenna completely pauses in the moment and daydreams for a while about something she feels so deeply and emotionally. Meanwhile, those around her have no idea what she's thinking or what difficult decisions she is trying to problem solve for herself as she comes up on her due date for her unexpected pregnancy. And I think that really is highlighted here. So it says, everyone wants to know what's inside, and I always tell them, but I feel more than words can say. It's hard not to sing that one for me as well. And so Jenna is talking about folks wanting to know what makes her freshly baked pie so amazing. And while she does tell them what she bakes is much more than ingredients into her pie, she also bakes how she is feeling into them and into the names that she creates. So much of this, this also makes me think of this infamous news segment where a child is asked if they are going to miss their parents on their first day of kindergarten, and the child says no, laughs, and then immediately breaks down, realizing that they will indeed miss their parents. As adults, we are often forced to push down our real feelings, and I think that's represented really here when someone says, "Are you having a good day?" And I'm like, "Yes," but sometimes inside I'm really like, "Not really." So that's just what we have to do sometimes. But while we have so much that we say and we show to others, we feel so much more inside. But I feel like that is also where we have the most control and influence. And throughout my career, I've realized how empowering that is. As I've been navigating the workplace, my biggest wins have been in settling into what I can control, and that is me, what I say, and what I do. And I remember when I first started as a manager, I thought being a manager meant that I got to control all of the things. And I know it's actually laughable and very, very funny now, but I do know better at this point. What I have instead realized is that's not at all part of the job, nor was it my job even before I was a leader to control all of the things. But this is also where I've gained the most growth as a person. What I've realized that I've gained is I can only control me. And it is this intense and deeply comforting idea that I can only control one thing, and that's me, what I share, what I do, how I do it with other people in mind, and most importantly, how I have to let in different perspectives to challenge me along the way. And I really resonate with something that Levi said about multiple truths. I was watching this show on Discovery Plus, and I cannot remember what it's called, but it has something to do with all these people are in a social experiment on a boat, and they say to one of the people, they're from different cultural backgrounds and races and things like that. But anyway, one person says to another person, "She's lying to me." And I keep thinking, like, this just this person's truth. And that's really helped me kind of navigate and assume best intentions, is to not assume that everyone's not telling the truth, but they're telling their truth. So that really has helped me. So I have instead realized now that it is not at all my job. Oh, sorry, I'm going on the wrong part. So let me share some ways I have found that have helped me, and hopefully you can find some things to explore and put those into practices into your own previews or your dress rehearsal. So reflecting on the past. I really like this quote from Maya Angelou. It's something that really grounds me in most of the things that I'm doing as often as possible, is that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but will never forget how you made them feel. So let's think about that a little bit. how someone has made us feel or how we have made others feel. We have a lot of responsibility at work, and one of them is working on our self-awareness, our curiosity, and our empathy. I think the first way I've tried to do this is by reflecting on the past. One thing I know that put a damper on anyone who is either interested in staying where they are or sometimes considering a career move or a change is it's sometimes motivated by a coworker or supervisor that they don't like or are having a hard time working with. So take a few moments to think about someone who has challenged you or you've had conflict with in the past. If you're currently working with them, have you allowed them to show anything different? It sounds simple, but really look at that. Let's take an example here. If you've worked with someone for 10 years and someone new comes in, have you found yourself being the person that warns the new person about the person you've had challenges with? Think about this the next time you have a new person come into the workspace. Your job isn't to warn new people about the present company and the department. Your job is to help the new person know about your department and your location's culture. Do you want the culture to be we talk about each other or we don't work well together? Or do you want this new person to be welcomed by you when you get to know them instead? Or show them where the restroom is or how they can check out their holds, or maybe where your favorite lunch place is in the area. Be mindful of negative talk about your coworkers as often as possible. Find new ways to work through that internally, writing it out, or even talking to a trusted friend or family member. See how you can be different for those around you and what you can learn from your past mistakes. So what else can you learn from the past? Can you listen more during conflict? Where was there something that you did that misstepped and maybe turned the tone of the conversation? How did you make the other person feel? How did they make you feel? And one quote I really like from Nedra Glover Tawwab is to put a little bit of emphasis on this point. It's not your job to save people. It's not your job to fix people. I can help people, but I can't fix them. So it's about changing your mindset to think differently about what you can do. I'll also leave you with one more comment on the past that you may have with someone. Therapist Vienna Farron says, when someone has a reaction that appears to be bigger than you believe is appropriate, consider that in the reaction is a rich history that may or may not have something to do with you directly, but it is important information nonetheless. Think back on those conflicts you've had with people that have stuck with you and see what part of you might have played or what part their personal life may have played in their reaction. Also think about what part of did your personal life at the time play into that might have impacted how you reacted to that person. Would you want to be judged for one bad interaction you had 2 years ago with someone? Are you remaining open to looking for people to show you consistently who they are? Maybe you misjudge them based off of things that happened infrequently. So as Levi said, taking yourself less seriously is another way to do that. If you take yourself too seriously, what new opinions are you missing out on? We are all human. We make mistakes on this journey that we have. So being humble to the things that challenge you can help you take yourself less seriously. Our jobs require us to be dedicated and hardworking, and we saw that you identified those things as things that resonate with you all as circulation workers and workers in the library. And sometimes we aren't always as put together as we like. Maybe we're really great at writing an email, and then when we have to talk something out with our supervisor or our coworker, we're not so put together. That's okay. So receiving feedback. So as we think about what helps previews when a show is first being introduced to the public, the show evolves through this process, and it's only possible through feedback. An example of this is in the musical Hamilton, which originally had the song called Congratulations after Hamilton wrote the Reynolds paper. But what audience wanted to see was Eliza's reaction to her husband's infidelity. So that's where the song Burn came from. When a director in a play gives an actor a new direction, or if they challenge the choice of the actor, the director is able to see from a vantage point that is different from the person or the people within the scene. They can see something that the individual actors cannot. And when the audience gives feedback on the show during previews, they are seeing it with fresh eyes and can provide guidance on how to improve the production because they are seeing the whole thing for the first time. How would this work for our work environment? Let's think about it. While trust with your supervisor and other coworkers takes time to build, it is helpful to allow feedback in rather than being resistant to it from the jump. Remembering that just allowing space to hear feedback does not necessarily mean it rings true to you or that it is the only truth, but it certainly can be an opportunity to learn something about yourself and even the other person. Take a moment to think about the most recent feedback that you've received. Maybe it was your supervisor talking to you about being late to a shift on the desk, or maybe it was your friend letting you know that they're frustrated for canceling plans. How did you take that? Were you open to the feedback? What does it look like What does it look like and sound like when you are open to feedback? How do you show the other person you are open to their feedback? What would it look like if you made the suggested adjustment? It requires a level of trust in the source, which can be the hardest thing to be comfortable with. But look at what would help what would help you trust that source. Think about someone that you have lost trust in. What changes could you make so that the feedback is something you could trust? For me, that often means allowing myself to see someone differently than the story I've been telling myself, and thusly allowing myself to be curious about what they have to say rather than expecting someone to disappoint me in some way, especially especially with trying to find ways to build trust. What I like, oh, sorry. What I like about this visual here is that allowing yourself to consistently learn is allowing yourself to hear new information, but it also shows the ebbs and flows of that process. You're not always growing and changing. Sometimes you are making mistakes and reassessing. You're not always unlearning harmful ideologies or biases. Sometimes you're being held accountable for something problematic that you've said. But what we also see is an opportunity to work together and a willingness to fail and keep moving. I recognize in myself sometimes how overwhelming these things are as I explore the possibilities to remain curious, self-aware, and of course, dealing with my many difficult emotions. I am not always my best self at work. I make mistakes, but what grounds me most of the time is this. There's a theory of conscious optimism that I'm comfortable leaning into that says you can be hopeful for the progress and the growth that's to come and mindful of the work that still needs to be done. That I think is important to remember as you continually work on being a better worker for yourself and for others, and allowing new ideas in and making mistakes. It's a balance of both hopeful and mindful.
Okay, before we get to showtime, Anita, you reminded me, or actually you said this and I realized, oh my God, I totally skipped over what is an important part of something that I think, well, something that's important to both of us.
Yeah.
And this is the possibility of multiple truths when we're attempting to learn what is possible, when we are trying to take on a different perspective, as Anita mentioned, and I skipped over, this multiple truths, that there are dueling or even more truths and narratives going on than what you realize, and having an awareness that you may not have the full picture to operate on, and accept that you may not know the full story of what's motivating what's in front of you, is a really freeing thought and approach to keep, or a lens to wear. It allows you to really check this, what I think is a human reaction of us versus them. It's me against them. It's an innate, it's just part of who we are as messy humans. We always have our own view, but we don't always have the whole picture. And it's a really, really great mindset to have, to keep your mind open to possibilities that you may not see through your siloed viewpoint. So just remember that. And like I said, I think that's and I like to have, oh, but I think you're frozen. No, you're back.
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Okay. You have this opening bit to close us out, my friend.
Yes. So we're ready for showtime, which really just means that we're going to wrap up everything that we already covered. That's the exciting thing. So, like an actor, you bring your full self to work. Decisions you've made, your personal and professional history, opportunities for growth and experience. If you or someone that you work with has been in their position for 10 plus years, remember that most likely you have or they have had to evolve with the times, which makes working together even harder. Remain curious and allow space when you can to let them show you something different. Or if you have only seen one type of behavior, try to think about why they might be acting that way, and perhaps be open that they may change. They may not change, or they may change. But ground yourself in the idea that you can change how you look at them and how you approach them to make working together easier. Like the theater, our workplace thrives on teamwork. Let it go and don't take yourself so seriously. Remember, find opportunities when you are holding on to something to explore moving forward by letting it go. Teamwork will require you to question the costume you wear and the props you use and what other people choose. Maybe you're wearing your burnout right now or the stress of feeling financially strained at home. How does that impact your mood and your relationships at work? Reevaluate and practice your communication skills. Learning happens in rehearsal. Self-reflect by analyzing your past experiences and be open to allowing people to change. Try reflecting on past conflict and see where you might have misstepped and learn. Give people who have challenged you new opportunities when you have space and see if you see them any different or see different sides of them. Remember conscious optimism. You can be hopeful for progress and the growth that's to come and mindful of the work that still needs to be done. Explore, practice self-reflection, perspective taking, assuming best intentions, outward mindset, and multiple truths. Your emotions and experience in the moment are important, but the other person is feeling something else or something too, and has things going on as well. Allowing these things in can help you see their perspective and practice that perspective shifting. Be open to feeling the feelings. Say yes and don't let fear deter your journey. Feedback is a helpful learning tool, and learning happens when you allow yourself more opportunities to get it wrong. Learn from mistakes and see what you can take into the next situation. And to close out our presentation, we invite you to be the director sometimes and take a new look at the story you've been telling yourself to explore the possibilities of what new opportunities are there. Be curious. Thank you so much, everyone. We have a little bit of time.
We have a little bit of time left.
Yeah.
And I just want to quickly wrap up with a reminder that this is showtime. If you're waiting for Guffman fan like me, it's the day of the show, y'all. You may think that your work is done. You've done all this work to prepare and commit to choices. Things are frozen and we're soaring on what we know, but it's not. This process is never ending. The world is always saying new things. Our environment is always changing. We are always changing. So think of every night its own show, as we do in the theater. Each audience will bring in their own experience to inform what's happening on the stage. And every audience is going to be different, bringing in their own baggage to that experience. For us in the workplace, each day is new. It's a cycle. And think of every day as a fresh start. Keep it fresh for every audience. Just as each show is impacted by that night's audience, our workplace is impacted by the world we live in, which is growing and changing. While we're performing, we're taking in new information about the world that we live in, and we're using that information to connect with the world around us. While you're performing, coming into work each day, what does it feel like to have learned from our mistakes and from the new cues that we're getting in the world around us? I wish we had like a big closing number or like a big pan out that we could do like a kick or something.
I do have a dream of us doing a duet of what is it called? It Takes Two from Into the Woods. I have a dream of that. Maybe at the MLA conference we can make it happen.
I love it. Maybe like karaoke duet or something.
Exactly. We can be Baker and Baker's wife. It's my dream. So we do have 2 questions in our Q&A. So someone asked what degree program that I am pursuing. So initially I was pursuing general studies when I was at the Carroll Community College when I was back where I grew up, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then eventually I started doing creative writing. And then when I went to UMGC, they didn't have that program, and I really didn't want to be forced to read books ever again if I can help it. So I ended up doing human resources. I'm very interested in development. I really love interviewing people. I love that process, recruitment. So that's what I'm doing currently. I'm not sure if that's where I'll end up or I'll land, but that's where I am. The direction that I'm going right now is a human resources management degree. And I really honestly just picked the thing that I thought would be the easiest for myself to get through, because all I want really is to just have a bachelor's degree. I don't really care what it's in. I don't have a big passion for college learning.
Well, but what
So
I love about taking on those experiences is being able to apply those to whatever environment you're in. I mean, as
yes.
I said, my undergraduate degree is in acting or in theater, in musical theater specifically, and I don't do it anymore. I like to say that I play the most important role for theater and performances, which that I buy tickets to go and sit in a seat.
Yes.
But I really believe that, you know, those undergraduate bills that I'm still paying, all of those experiences I apply every day. And as I mentioned in the presentation, it's about applying those skills not only to my work role and my role and responsibility to other people professionally, and in the community that I serve, but also to the people in my personal life. Being able to apply those skill sets to navigate your relationships and have a better experience in this weird thing called life, I think that we all do, right? You carry those experiences and what's effective for you, you'll continue to apply no matter what your dumb degree's in.
No, I think that's a really great point. That's the other reason I went with HR management. I was like, I want to do something that would help what I'm presently doing, even if I don't end up going into human resources at all. My girlfriend works in human resources as well, so I have someone that can proofread my human resources papers, which is a really nice gift as well.
A study buddy.
I know, and she's thinking about going to her graduate degree, and I mean, we'll have to pay up and help her back at some point, I think. Yeah. So another person asked, what can I do to get feedback if I have never had a formal evaluation in 3 years that I worked in my present role? Since they worked in, I think it's probably since they worked in their present role. I have some thoughts, but what are you thinking?
Well, I know, you know, my immediate reaction and thought was you have to ask for it.
Yeah.
And that's really something I never really, first of all, even realized I had permission to do. And a source or a tool that I took out of this presentation that we used to mention before is where kind of I got permission to recognize and accept that it is up to me to ask if that matters and is important to me. And that's the building a how to work with me guide, which is a tool from the text called No Hard Feelings by Liz, sorry, I'm looking at it on my bookshelf, by Liz Fosseline and Molly West Duffy. They talk about this tool called A Guide to Work for Me, and it has a series of questions that you ask yourself and that you take time to answer by typing out. And then you share that with other people. But one of the questions that's asked there is, how do I like to receive feedback? And that was an important thing for me to think of that I hadn't ever thought of. So I think number one, you have to ask yourself, how do you like to receive feedback? Where would you like to receive feedback? And it's up to you to ask for that. That's just my immediate reaction. Be bold, as we like to say in the theater, be bold and make bold choices. And I think that that would be a bold choice to ask. That could be in your yearly evaluation, or if you haven't had one, to ask for one. But it can also be as simple as asking for feedback on a project, on an assignment, or on a task. Just simply ask for that and find the opportunity. I also think that you don't have to always get feedback from the people that supervise or manage you. You can get feedback from your peers and colleagues that will be really, really helpful. And I think maybe more importantly and helpful to inform your role on the team and your responsibility to other people. So that was my first thought, Anita, is just be bold and ask for it. Let somebody tell you, no, I don't want to give you feedback.
Yeah, I agree. I think as someone that has been late on writing someone's review, I definitely would rather someone just let me know that they'd like to hear something sooner as a supervisor than someone thinking I don't want to give them information. The other thing that I struggle with sometimes as a supervisor is that I don't necessarily need regular feedback or even like monthly, weekly, quarterly, unless I am doing something that you would like me to change. So I usually assume like no news is good news. And that's just how I work, just to try to like work around it. But I do agree that writing, I would probably write it in an email. That would make me feel the most comfortable.
Great
That's what
idea,
would work
yeah.
for me, to be like, hey, I was hoping to get some feedback, and I think being as specific about where you'd like the feedback to be, either in the public service work that you're doing, in the work that you're doing with the team, if there's a task that you could be doing that you haven't done before, whatever that might be, being as specific as possible of what you're looking for, you'll get the best results with that. And I totally agree. But yeah, that's very tricky. And some systems I have found have a higher priority to making sure that the managers are doing the reviews, and some systems don't, which is tricky if you are looking for feedback. Yeah, I
I think it's a
understand the
great
struggle.
recommendation to be specific about what kind of feedback you're looking to seek. I think it's also important to clarify, how you would like to receive that feedback. It's important to remember that sometimes when a supervisor or manager is asked to give that feedback, it really puts them on the spot. And as I mentioned at one point, being prepared to engage is an important part, I think, of that feedback process that you want to be able to give people space for. So I think, too, clarifying what is the opportunity for feedback. I'd like some informal feedback on this specific thing that I did. Helps kind of lower the stakes of that process, so that it can be more of a free-flowing engagement or feedback loop rather than something that's formal. And be willing to accept more informal feedback and what that can inform for yourself.
I think you'll be a really great person to answer this other question in here. What is the best approach while dealing with a hostile patron using the methods that we talked about today?
Well, the bad news is that I have never dealt with any hostile patrons.
Me
Most of them
neither.
all just come up to me and greet me with hugs and
They just melt.
So no, I think this is a really important part of our work, especially if you are a frontline service member. And I think that, in my experiences, which, I'm 2014 is when I started in libraries, but I've been in customer service most of my life. And I think there is always a fear of that engagement, whether it is real in front of us or the potential for it. Of the things that we talked about today, for me, when I'm working through that process of dealing with customer feedback or hearing about a customer experience that I wasn't prepared to hear about that day, it's really about just stopping to listen, challenging myself to not respond. That's not really something that we covered today, because it is very much about taking in and responding. But one thing that I always try to remember is that, when we are in those heightened experiences, that person's trying to communicate a lot to us at once. It's about their experience, it's about their feelings, it's about their wants and their needs. And it's really important for me to remember and keep in my head that I don't have to respond to everything, and that they're not actually looking for me to respond to everything so much as to listen to everything. So one technique that I try to do is to actively listen. That's to reflect back that I am physically listening to you. I think more importantly, and something that I have worked really, really hard to increase over time, is to just shut up and not respond to everything, but to reflect back what I'm hearing to the customer. Not only does that allow them to hear and see that I'm acknowledging their frustration and their pain and their whatever they're mad about, but it helps me to confirm what I'm hearing. More importantly, it helps me to hear what is the role that I play in this customer's experience and making it better for them as well as me. A lot of that is really a reference technique that I know I learned in graduate school. When you're doing that reference interview, you are listening for those cues to reflect back, to clarify what that need is. And usually what we're hearing from a customer in those heightened exchanges is a need. And they want that need to be reflected back, and then they want you to know how you're going to handle that. And I think where I would apply this reminder that you don't have to respond to everything is that not everything has to be responded to right away. One other thing that I've tried to really develop lately is to listen, reflect, and then acknowledge what they can expect out of me. That I need the time to think through this and to work with other people on a resolution or a follow-up. And this is the date and time on which you will get that follow-up from me. Usually that's the best technique to kind of de-escalate the situation. situation. But what I also like is for our customer service approach, it welcomes that customer back, right? It welcomes them back to the experience and hopefully a resetted experience for them and for me. So those are a couple of approaches that I would recommend taking, but honestly, it's a really, really hard skill set and approach to develop. And the only way to do it is to experience it and feel the feeling, feel that fire and know how your body and your mind is reacting to that.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. And I think something that I wish I had been aware of sooner was the multiple truths concept, that someone's experience at your location before, and they're like, sometimes that's some of the hostility is like, you used to do this thing for me and you don't anymore. That could be true, that happened, and like recognizing that, even if it seems as wild as possible, that it's like no way that happened, kind of going along with people on the journey. And the other thing that's really helped me with practicing some of these things is practicing not at work. As Levi said, you have to have the experience to know how to navigate it better. But at work, when I'm not at work, it feels less risky to me. So something that I do, obviously I have conflict with my partner, that those things happen, and practicing these sort of skills in those environments, while still risky, obviously these are still people that are important to your life. It's a good way to get a little comfortable with these concepts without having to do it right in front of a customer in the moment, which might be a little bit harder. And just like with anything, with rehearsing, it will start to feel a little bit more natural. But as Levi said, it's still difficult, it's still challenging, and it's still, sometimes you leave that interaction still feeling a little bit icky. And I also, the other thing I thought too, something I've learned from both Levi and his supervisor that I really like too, is that people come into the library that are coming in regularly do and can show you something different from day to day. So to assume that a customer that is regular will be exactly the same the next day can be some of the challenging points, and where that conflict comes from is that you're anticipating their behavior to be the same, which sometimes it is, and there's a reason that you're anticipating it because the pattern is there. But I really like that approach to, and respect that approach to customer service, that trying to give people new opportunities. And I think we talked about that in our presentation too, that someone may show you something different than you're expecting, and you have to be curious and ready to see that be different. Absolutely. I really like that concept.
I love that. Yeah. Allow people to show a different side of themselves. Yeah. And have great scene partners at home.
Exactly. We probably have time for maybe
Actually, we don't. We have 3 minutes, and Paula wants us to throw it back to her.
Okay, that sounds great. I love it. Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to send it back over to Paula to close this out. But thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Real pleasure to be with you today. Thank you so much.
Anita and Levi, the reviews are in. It is, I think we're up for a Tony. Everyone. A Tony. Thank you so much for today. We're just so grateful here at SLRC for you all to participate and be our keynotes. People seem to really like it. So if you're feeling like you need to pick me up, we'll send you this chat transcript later, because it has been a smash hit. For folks that are still on the call, thank you so much. We have our next session coming up at 1, so please enjoy a little lunch break, and we'll see you then. And huge reminder, the last session of the day, the United Way's 30/30 experience, is hosted through United Way and not through SLRC. So I've sent 10,000 reminders. Please register through the United Way to get your unique Zoom link to log in. And they're also going to be sending you a username and password to get into that virtual simulation. If you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to email me, pmitchell@prattlibrary.org. I'll see you again at 1 o'clock. Anita, Levi, phenomenal. Thank you so much for everything. Everyone else on the SLRC team, thank you so much for the support today. We'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.